Hey guys, tonight we're diving fork first into a dish most people would never dare touch. But for many throughout history, it was survival on a plate. You're sitting at a rickety wooden table, candle barely flickering in the drafty room, and in front of you on a cracked ceramic plate rests a roasted rat. Still warm, still whole. It smells edible, kind of. Your stomach growls louder than the rats in the corner. And this, you realize, might be the best meal you'll have all week. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I also love hearing where you're listening from. Drop your location and what time it is down in the comments. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You pick up the rat delicately like it might bite you back. But it's already dead cooked, even seasoned with salt scraped together from the kitchen floor, or what might be floor dust. The meat is stringy, chewy, and alarmingly gamey. You close your eyes and try to imagine it's chicken. It's not, but it's warm. It's food. And that right there is the great leveling factor throughout history. Food is food. You've got hunger gnawing at your belly like a wolf. And suddenly, all those lines you once drew between acceptable and unacceptable, they blur. Fast, historians still argue whether rat meat was truly widespread in everyday peasant diets, or if it was more of a famine or siege delicacy. Yes, we're calling it a delicacy tonight, because when you haven't eaten for 3 days, anything on a plate earns that title. In some dark chapters of the past, this wasn't a joke. People really did scrounge for anything that moved vermin, bugs, bark. Rats just happened to be the largest and most accessible of the street meats. And more importantly, they had meat. Bones, yes. Tails, you. But meat was a luxury. You reach again for a second helping and realize something unnerving. You don't even flinch this time. The room you're in is cold. Your cloak, scratchy wool that smells like mold, does little to keep out the damp. There's frost on the inside of the window, and your breath fogs the air. But in your belly, there's warmth now. And even though you know the rat wasn't exactly pasture-raised or ethically sourced, it fills a silence that's lived in your ribs for days. That silence of hunger. The ache that makes you dizzy when you stand too fast. That hum that makes the walls pulse slightly when you try to sleep. One rat. One breath of warmth. You lean back against the wall and sigh, the kind of sigh that says, I hate this, but I'm still here. It's not romantic. It's not even noble. It's just what humans do. We survive. We adapt. And sometimes we eat rats. You wonder what your modern self would think of you now. Maybe the part of you that buys gluten-free crackers and Googles how long to soak chia seeds would faint. But your ancestors? They'd nod. Approvingly, maybe even offer you some pigeon jerky or a beetle biscuit. A fly buzzes lazily near your ear, bold in winter. You're not the only one drawn to the smell of warmth. You shoo it half-heartedly and pull your cloak tighter. The rat bones clatter softly on the plate. One looks eerily like a tiny femur. You don't dwell on it. Across the room, someone sneezes hard enough to echo. Probably not the plague. Probably. You wipe your mouth with the back of your sleeve because napkins are for kings, and even they didn't always have them. You think for a fleeting second that if your old life, your soft bed, heated room, fridge stock life could see you now, it might look away in horror. But you know better. That life, it was built on top of this one. On top of desperate nights, cold food, and the will to keep going. So you chew and you swallow. And somewhere in the distance, a rat squeaks. You hope it's not one of the smart ones. The smart ones wait. They let you eat one of their slower cousins. Then they come for the crumbs. And yet as your eyes start to droop and your stomach settles just enough, you realize something oddly peaceful. You made it through another day. And tonight you're not starving. Maybe that's enough. You wake up with a sore back and a cold nose. The stone floor didn't exactly cradle you, and your rat-filled belly doesn't feel particularly grateful either. But still, you're alive. And that's no small feat in the year 13 and 16. Outside, it's drizzling again. The kind of rain that seeps into your clothes, your bones, and your will to get up. But you do. Because hunger, that relentless little beast, is already stirring again. This is year 2 of what will be remembered as the Great Famine of Europe. You didn't know the name back when it started. People rarely do. But you know the feeling. The endless, hungry sky. The fields turned to muck. The seeds that never sprouted. The bread that stretched thinner and thinner until even the rats looked like better options. Historians often cite 1315 to 1317 as the peak of the famine, when crops failed for 3 years straight across much of northern Europe. Rain poured down for weeks without end, flooding fields, rotting stored grain, and making harvests a cruel joke. You remember watching wheat dissolve into moldy sludge right in the granaries. It smelled worse than your socks by a lot. You weren't the only one watching, of course. So were the rats. And as the granaries emptied and the cattle died, and people grew gaunt and bitter, the rats thrived. They fattened on what we lost. You could hear them at night scratching under floorboards, their tiny claws like whispers of doom. You try to stay optimistic. You remember once someone boiled leather shoes into a soup. That was an invention. A moment of innovation, even if your teeth haven't been the same since. Another man claimed he made porridge out of moss. You asked for a bite. You regretted it. But the rat, that wasn't regret. That was, dare you say, relief. You'd caught it yourself using your last crust of bread as bait, which felt like a moral betrayal at the time. But it worked. The rat didn't know desperation quite like you did. Now as you drag yourself toward town, what's left of it, you notice fewer people on the roads, fewer carts, fewer shouts from market stalls. Hunger doesn't just thin your body, it thins the world. Voices go quiet when bellies go empty. Even laughter starts to sound guilty. Historians still debate how many people died during the Great Famine. Some say 10% of Europe's population, others more. The records blur between disease, starvation, and plain old vanishing. What's clear is that the famine didn't care whether you were noble or nobody. Hunger is class blind. You stop near a church. There's a man kneeling beside the stone wall, whispering to something cupped in his hands. You think it's prayer. Then he opens his palms. It's a mouse, alive, pink-eyed and shivering. He's weeping. You walk on. Your shoes are soaked. Your breath fogs the air. You wish you had gloves or thicker socks, or even just one warm thought to hold on to. But mostly you wish someone would call your name from a window and offer you food. Instead, you find yourself near the old bakery. Its doors are boarded up, the scent of bread long gone. But you remember a story told by someone who swore they saw a baker roasting a rat in the fire that once baked loaves. Not with shame, but with ceremony. It's meat, he said, and God gave us teeth. You smile at that now, not because it's funny, but because it's true. You think of your modern self somewhere far in the future staring in horror at a microwave dinner when the Wi-Fi goes out. That person would not survive this, but you do, one rat at a time. You keep walking past the broken carts and shuttered stalls and your eye catches something, a movement quick near a barrel. You freeze. It's a rat, plump, confident, probably smug. You lick your lips. Then you stop yourself. You just ate. You're not that far gone. Not yet. You head home, or what passes for home, a patch of dry straw, and a roof that leaks in only 2 places now, which feels like an upgrade. You sit, exhale, and let your eyes drift shut for a moment. You listen to the rain, to the wind, to your stomach no longer growling. That alone is a kind of luxury. You imagine for a moment what a real feast might be like. Roasted meat, herbs, cheese, candied fruits, and no rats in sight except maybe the ones stealing crumbs off the table while everyone laughs. Even the rats deserve a little joy sometimes. But for now you have memory, you have rain, and somewhere beneath the floorboards you have tomorrow's dinner, if you're quick enough. By now you've developed a skill you never thought you'd need, listening for rats. Not just hearing them, really listening. The soft scuffle near a wall, the faint gnawing at wood, the occasional squeak of alarm. You know the difference between a rat that's exploring and a rat that's cornered, between one that's too skinny to bother with and one that might just be tonight's main course. It's not glamorous. It's not something you're proud of, but it's how you get by. And tonight, as your stomach once again hums its lonely tune, you think of the people who've had it worse, though. That list is unfortunately quite long, because hunger didn't pack up and leave after the Great Famine. It lingered, it mutated, and a few decades later it met its perfect companion plague. You've heard the stories. Maybe you've even lived a few. The Black Death rolled through towns like a storm with no sky. One day someone was sneezing, the next they were a memory. Buboes' fevers, coughing, fits so violent they cracked ribs. And in the midst of that terror, something strange happened. People kept eating rats. Yes, rats. The very creatures blamed for spreading the plague, for harboring the infected fleas that brought death into homes like an unwanted dinner guest. You'd think that would make people stop, but hunger is louder than reason. Historians still argue whether eating rats during the plague was common or just a desperate fringe practice. But one thing's for sure, the line between food and fear became very, very blurry. You look at a rat now and you don't see disease. You see a warm meal protein survival. That's how your brain keeps you going. It erases certain truths so your body doesn't give up. You remember one woman, an older one, her fingers twisted with time, who said she boiled rats with rosemary, not because it helped the flavor, but because it made the room smell like memory, like better times. You admired her for that, even while gagging on the smell. Some towns tried to outlaw it. No rat eating, they'd shout, waving their arms and quoting scriptures about purity and pestilence. But laws don't mean much when your children are crying from hunger. In fact, you once saw a man get fined for trapping rats in a city alley. He paid the fine in rat skins. The irony was lost on no one. The fear of infection changed things. You got smarter. You started cooking rats longer, adding whatever herbs or burnt crumbs you could find. You scraped mold off old onions and prayed they still had some bite. You learned to tell the difference between a plague rat and a healthy one, if such a thing existed. Some swore the healthy ones had shinier fur. Others said they didn't exist at all. But the risk, you accepted it, because at some point choosing between starving and possibly dying of disease felt like a luxury. A 50-50 shot starts to look pretty good when your odds were already worse. You remember one night in particular. The wind howled like it was trying to peel the roof off your hut. The fire had gone out. Your hands were numb, but there nestled in a trap behind the hearth was a rat. Big, fat, warm to the touch. It looked almost insulted to be caught. You didn't hesitate, not then. You whispered an apology, said a prayer half to God, half to your gut, and skinned it with a shard of broken pottery. The fur stuck to your fingers. The meat smelled like fear and ash. But when it hit the pan, sizzling softly over your tiny fire, something in you relaxed. Something ancient. You ate every bite, even the tail. You didn't taste anything except not hunger. And as you lay down afterwards, stomach full, for the first time in days, you felt triumphant. Like you had outwitted death. Or at least postponed it. You see, in times of plague, people didn't just fight disease, they fought the silence. The absence of normal sounds, laughter, market bells, children's arguments. And when those disappeared, the rats were still there. Scuttling, gnawing, living. Reminding you that life, even in its lowest form, goes on. It's strange how something so feared could also become comfort. Not in a joyful sense, but in a practical one. Rats were predictable, plentiful, easier to catch than birds, easier to cook than fish. They didn't vanish when the sickness came, they multiplied. They fed on what was left behind, just like you. You pull your cloak tighter around you now, remembering that winter. The way you tucked a rat carcass into your sleeve to keep it warm until you got home. The way you hoped nobody would rob you, not for coins, for rats. A dog barks in the distance. You wonder if it smells something, if it's hunting what you're hunting. Competition's always fierce after dark. But tonight you're ahead. You've set 3 traps. One under the bed, one by the hearth, and one in the corner where the wall meets the floor. You sprinkled flour around each one like breadcrumbs for ghosts. If any little feet pass through, you'll know. And you'll eat. The night drips slowly toward morning. You barely sleep listening for the traps. That tiny click could mean the difference between waking up hungry or not. When the pale light of dawn finally creeps across the floor, you sit up your joints popping like a chorus of old bones. You move first to the trap near the hearth. Empty. The flour trail there is undisturbed, no footprints, no luck. You try the second one under the bed. It's been triggered. Your heart quickens. You lift it gently, and yes, a rat. Still warm. Not too big, not too small. You whisper a quiet thank you to no one in particular and slip it into your satchel. The third trap, empty again. 2 out of 3 would have been a miracle. 1 out of 3 is a meal. You take it, because this is life under siege. And you're lucky. Others in your town, your village, your little corner of the kingdom, they have nothing. You've heard the stories. Whole cities cut off from supply lines. No food going in, no people coming out. Siege warfare, they call it. But to you, it's just starvation in slow motion. You remember the first time it happened. The army came, dug trenches, built barricades, surrounded the city like a cruel joke. And then they waited. Days turned into weeks, weeks into a season. The people inside went from cautious to frantic. At first, folks rationed, then they stole, then they improvised. There was the butcher's cat, gone by the second week, then pigeons. Then the bark was scraped off trees so furiously that the trunks bled sap like tears. And after all that came the rats. You'd never eaten one before then. No one had. Not openly, anyway. But the grocer, desperate and shaky, started selling mystery meat pies. And you knew what was in them. Everyone did, but no one asked. Historians still debate whether rats were truly eaten during famous sieges like those in Carcassonne, Jerusalem, or Paris. Some say it's just dark folklore. Others cite letters, cookbooks, and desperate diary entries that describe the unmistakable flavor of hunger in rodent form. You remember one family who proudly claimed they made rat stew with garlic and vinegar. To cut the musk, they said. It didn't really work, but it gave people hope. And hope surprisingly tastes better than most spices. There were fights too. Fist fights over traps. Screaming matches when someone found droppings and accused the neighbors of stealing their rats. The absurdity would have been funny if it weren't so hungry. You once saw a boy holding a rat like a prize, showing it off, as if he'd just caught a golden fish. He grinned his teeth all crooked and soot-stained and said, "We're eating tonight," and you believed him. You reach back into your satchel and pull out your own catch, still intact. You can tell it's young, meatier than the old ones, less likely to be full of disease. You lay it on a flat rock near the fire pit and begin the work. Skinning, gutting, cleaning. You've done it so many times now, your hands move on their own. There's a kind of rhythm to it, not pleasant, but peaceful in its own grim way. The knife glides, the fur peels, the organs tumble out. You toss them to the corner. Even you won't eat those. Once prepped, you place the meat on a spit, a bent metal rod from an old lantern, and hang it over the fire. It sizzles. It smokes. It smells almost inviting. And as it cooks, your mind drifts again to that time in Paris when siege and hunger forced people to turn their cellars into kitchens and their pets into entrees. Some say rat stew became so common there during the 1870 siege of Paris that cafes offered it as a delicacy. You'd heard of ragout de rat, rat ragout, served with wine if you were lucky, or rich. You're not rich, but you are lucky, at least today. The fire crackles gently and the smell of cooked rat, nutty, oily, vaguely metallic, fills your space. You close your eyes and inhale deeply. Your stomach rumbles in anticipation, not in protest. There's a strange dignity in this moment. You, a survivor, eating what the world left behind. Not out of pride, not out of culture, just because you must. The rat finishes cooking. You pull it off the spit, careful not to burn your fingers. You blow on it and take the first bite. The skin is crisp like overdone chicken. The meat is chewy, gamey, but not bad, not anymore. You chew slowly, letting it fill you, letting it anchor you to this day, this hour, this fire. And for a moment you feel, okay, you're not thriving, you're not feasting, but you are fed. And that in these times makes you a king. You sit back on your heels, wiping your fingers on the hem of your cloak, the last gnawed bones of your breakfast rattling in a bowl that used to hold soup back when soup was a thing people could afford to water down. Now it's mostly dreams you dilute. Still, that rat did the trick. Your stomach is warm, your limbs feel a little less like wet laundry, and for the first time in days you feel something dangerously close to satisfied. Not full, of course. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. As the fire dies down and the coals glow like sleepy eyes, you remember a story you once heard in a French tavern, or maybe it was someone who heard it from someone else who had read it in a letter about a woman in Paris who perfected rat stew. They said she used thyme, wild onions, and a splash of vinegar. Her dish was popular during the siege, served hot with stale bread and sold out by noon. No rats, no soup, she used to say. You'd think it was a joke. It wasn't. Historians still debate whether recipes like hers were truly real or exaggerated wartime folklore. Some claim there were actual cookbooks that documented rat dishes, and others believe these stories were metaphors, tales of resilience passed down like survival heirlooms. But when your stomach's empty and there's meat in your trap, you don't care if it's folklore. You care if it's done. You once tried to replicate that stew. You didn't have time, or vinegar, or onions. You did have a few dried leaves you pretended were herbs, and a crust of bread so hard you used it to break open a nut. The stew came out thick, murky, and almost indistinguishable from the laundry water. You ate every spoonful anyway. Later that week, you saw someone try to sell actual rat meat at market. No disguises, just rat. Laid out on a wooden slab like it was salted pork. People hesitated. Then someone bought one. Then another. That's all it took. The line grew fast. Hunger makes good marketing. You remember watching the butcher wrap it in cloth like it was treasure eyes darting like a man committing a sin? Maybe he was. Maybe you all were. But here's the strange thing about sin in times like these. It loses its edges. Right and wrong start to blur like candlelight in a fog. You're not stealing. You're scavenging. You're not eating rats. You're surviving. You tell yourself this. You have to. And even if there were still rules, who would enforce them? The Lord he left months ago. The priests. They haven't been seen since the church roof caved in. The baker. He's rumored to be roasting something larger than a rat. No one's asked what. The streets are quieter now. You venture outside, a bone in your pocket, just in case you spot a dog. It's amazing how your idea of bait has changed. Once it was cheese, now it's cooked leftovers. You pass a house with the shutters nailed shut. A woman inside hums. You don't know if it's a lullaby or madness. Maybe both. You move on. A young boy runs past you barefoot, carrying something wriggling in his hands. You catch a glimpse of it, fur teeth, pink tail. He grins like a thief with a gold coin. You nod at him. He nods back. That's a conversation now. Further down, you see a group of women sitting around a barrel fire, stirring a pot with long sticks. The smell hits you before the steam does. Burnt, meaty, familiar. You don't ask what's in the pot. No one does anymore. One of them offers you a cup. You sip. It's hot, thin, has floating bits that you pray are root vegetables. They aren't. Still, you thank her. You drink. You feel it spread through your belly like a fire politely introducing itself. And that's the thing, every bite you take, every sip you swallow, it's not just food. It's fuel for memory. It reminds you that you're alive. that you're still here, that somehow rats or no rats, you made it to another sunrise. People romanticize hardship from far away. They turn it into poetry, into paintings, into philosophy. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, they say. But here's a secret. What doesn't kill you usually leaves you cold sore and chewing on something with whiskers. You walk home slowly, not because you're tired though you are, but because the world moves slower now. Hunger taught you to notice things the way frost creeps like ivy across windows, the way smoke curls differently when someone's cooking meat, the way you can almost always tell when someone's hiding a fresh catch under their coat. You arrive back at your little corner of survival. The fire's dead. The coals are gray, but the warmth still lingers in the stones. You sit, breathe, close your eyes. Tomorrow maybe you'll find 2 rats. Maybe one will be pregnant. Maybe there'll be stew, or maybe not. But for now you've eaten. For now you're okay. And that's something. By now you've stopped flinching when you hear skittering in the walls. In fact, sometimes you even smile. It's like hearing coins rattle in your pocket. You know something valuable is near. Not gold, of course, not even bread. Just potential. You've gotten good at spotting them too. You can tell where they'll go based on a single flicker of a shadow. You've learned their rhythms, their favorite hiding spots, the way they squeak when surprised. You'd call yourself a rat whisperer if it didn't sound so tragic. Today you're heading toward the edge of town. What used to be a bustling square now looks like a forgotten campfire site. Burnt stalls smash crates in the eerie silence of a place that once had voices. You pass by the well, which still holds water, though it smells faintly of iron and something that might once have been cabbage. You see her again, the girl with the traps. Young, maybe 15. Sharp eyes, dirty fingers. She's got 3 snare loops set around the base of a crumbling wall, baited with something you can't quite identify. Possibly bread, possibly hope. You nod at her. She doesn't nod back, but she doesn't chase you off either. In these times, that's practically friendship. You take your spot near the broken steps where you once saw 3 rats playing like kittens. You wait. The sun is weak and pale. The clouds look like they're unsure whether to snow or give up entirely. As you sit, your stomach gives a little twist. Not a full growl, just a reminder. It's been half a day since your last rat, and you're already doing mental math about how long you can stretch the memory of meat. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. You were born into a town with cobblers and shoemakers, scribes and bakers. There were street musicians, fishmongers, and that one annoying man who sold painted stones as healing rocks. He's probably thriving now. Everyone wants to feel healed. But things change. Fast. You remember when the river froze solid and the grain carts never arrived. People got quiet, then angry, then quiet again, but in that dangerous way like fire under ice. And when the rats came, it was like they knew. Like they sensed your weakness and marched in like little gray opportunists. They had no shame, no fear. At first, they nibbled the edges of the world, crumbs, trash, forgotten scraps. Then they got bold. Then they got fat. You never imagined that fatness would look appetizing, but there it was, a creature that looked oddly healthy despite the ruin around it. One man called them little survivors. Another called them lunch. Historians still debate whether the rise in urban rat populations during crisis times was due to declining sanitation or simply human absence. Less people, more room, more garbage. Nature doesn't wait for an invitation. There's an older woman who lives in a cart near the eastern gate. She swears by spit roasting them. Says it brings out the nutty oils. You've tried it. She's not wrong. You just wish you hadn't heard her say nutty oils while chewing. You hear a snap. The girl's trap worked. You both jump up at the same time, instinct driving your feet before your thoughts. She gets there first, pulls out the creature still wriggling, and presses it to the ground with the practiced calm of someone who stopped being squeamish long ago. She spares you a glance. You nod not for the rat, but for the ritual. She says nothing, then walks away with it tucked under her coat. You sit again. You think about how many rats you've eaten. You've lost count. You're not even sure what the first one tasted like anymore. Was it salty? Was it sweet? Did you chew it slowly or devour it in 3 wild bites you hope you chewed? Rats have tiny bones. You've learned the hard way. You also think about your mother, about how she used to make stew from scraps. Carrot ends, onion skins, bits of meat that no longer had a name. She called it kitchen magic. You'd kill for even one of her sad, overcooked onions right now. Sometimes when you're preparing a rat, you talk to her, just in your head. You say things like, "Don't look, Ma," or "It's not as bad as it seems." You imagine her raising an eyebrow, folding her arms, then sighing and telling you to add more salt. A gust of wind kicks up dust and you wrap your cloak tighter around you. You feel something shift under your foot. Another trap, no. Just a loose stone, but the noise has drawn attention. You see movement, 3 rats darting across the road like shadows on the run. You don't chase, you're tired, and frankly, you've grown to respect them. They're survivors, just like you. You make your way back home, your eyes scanning for twitching tails or little footprints in the dirt. You think about dinner. Maybe you'll have bread. Maybe you'll have nothing. Maybe if the girl is feeling generous, you'll have half a rat, cooked well, seasoned with sharing. You smile at the thought, not because it's funny, but because it's possible. Back home, your room smells faintly of ash and old straw. The fire's long out and the coals are cold. You nudge them with a stick just to be sure, but they crumble like old memories used up and done with. Still, you sit near them. It's where your body expects warmth, even if there's none left to give. You unwrap your satchel. No rat today, no scraps. Just a wish and a few linty crumbs. You nibble one out of habit. It tastes like flour. Still, you don't panic. You've learned that panic burns more energy than hunger. Hunger at least has a rhythm now. It comes and goes like a tide, and if you lie still long enough, it passes just in time to return later with greater confidence. Your fingers absently trace the edges of a splinter in the wall. You think about what it would take to catch a rat tonight. Not just spot one, but truly trap one. You're low on bait. You've got nothing fresh, no crust, no bone. You briefly consider using a bit of your own boot leather. The thought passes quickly. That didn't go well last time. Instead, you lean back and think about how this all began. There was a time not that long ago when rats were only pests. You used to shout at them, throw things. You'd complain when they stole from your pantry or chewed holes in your grain sacks. Now you look at them differently. Now you see them not as thieves, but colleagues. You're both just trying to get through the day. Historians still argue whether rats became a normalized food source during crises or remained taboo even among the starving. Some sources say it was all done in secret. Others suggest markets openly sold them during sieges. Either way, you know how it feels to hide what you eat and how it feels to stop caring who sees you do it. You remember the time you offered rat meat to someone who still thought dignity was edible. They sneered. Then they came back 3 days later and asked quietly if you had any more. You didn't. You'd eaten every bite, even the tail. It wasn't out of cruelty, just timing. The light outside begins to fade. There's something about twilight that feels more desperate now. When the sun disappears, the cold comes quickly. So do the shadows, and so do the rats. It's the only part of your day that feels like hunting season. You set a trap, just one. Near the fireplace where the bricks have crumbled slightly, forming a neat little rat highway. For bait, you use a bit of wax and a splash of something that smells vaguely like broth. It's nothing, but the scent might be enough to trick them. You whisper to no one in particular, "Come hungry, little friend." And then you wait. As the room cools, you pull your cloak tighter and curl your knees into your chest. You listen. You always listen. It's the one thing famine can't dull your ears. You hear creaks, a few wind gusts, a distant cough from someone else in the building. Then, A scratch, not much, but enough. You hold your breath. Your muscles stiffen, not from fear, but focus. You count to 10 slow and steady. Then you hear it again. A shuffle, closer, a sniff, then silence. You almost give up hope, but then click. The trap snaps shut. You exhale like you've been underwater. You crawl toward it, hands moving, fast, eyes already preparing for disappointment. But no. There it is, a rat, not large but real, caught, tangible. You stare at it for a moment. It's dead, quick and clean. You whisper thank you because it feels right. You pick it up, wrap it gently, and set it aside for later. No rush. You're full of patience now. You found that rat meat, despite its reputation, can be cooked to a surprisingly decent standard. The trick is removing the scent glands, something you learned after one unfortunate stew that made the whole room smell like old shoes. Now you take your time. You skin carefully. You trim with precision. You hum sometimes if the mood allows. You think about writing a recipe down. Rustic rat roast. Maybe add a note about pairing it with boiled grass roots and wild vinegar. You chuckle softly. Not because it's funny, but because it's your version of dreaming now. The fire takes effort to relight. You have to coax the coals, blow until you're dizzy, strike the flint over and over until your fingers feel raw. Eventually the flame catches. It flickers, then dances. You feel a flicker inside you too. You roast the rat slowly. You don't rush. You rotate the spit, listen to the fat drip into the pan. Watch the skin blister and brown. You could almost pretend it's something finer. Something from a market stall. Something served on a plate instead of a stick. You close your eyes and breathe deep. And then as you take that first bite, hot, chewy, oddly familiar, you feel a warmth spread through your chest. It's not happiness, but it's something. It's enough. You wake not because you're hungry, but because you're listening. That familiar sound again, light and quick like claws tapping a drumhead. The rats are back in the roof. Maybe they never left. You open your eyes slowly, letting the dim gray of early morning leak in through the cracks. The straw mat beneath you creaks as you sit up. Cold air brushes your skin. Your breath fogs in front of you like smoke from a fire that isn't there. And yet there's something in your chest, a strange small spark. You've learned by now that survival teaches you to get excited about the oddest things. Today it's that sound. The rats. Again. You sit up, stretch, and take quiet inventory. Your body aches in places you no longer keep track of. You reach for your satchel empty. But last night's warmth still lingers in your ribs, faint but real. One rat, one fire, one moment of not being afraid to sleep. Outside, the sky is flat and heavy. You wrap your cloak tighter and step into the world which feels paused between frost and fog. A slow wind moves through the empty village like it's looking for someone who used to live here. You make your way toward the alley near the broken granary, quiet but not lifeless. And there she is again, the girl with the traps. She's crouched beside a pile of rotted sacks, hands moving fast and sure. She glances up at you, just briefly, but it's enough. A flicker of recognition. Then a tilt of her head and a wave. Come over, you do. She opens a cloth bundle in her lap and reveals them 2 plump rats. Clean kills. Good size. No bite marks. You whistle under your breath and raise your eyebrows. She grins just a flicker, crooked and proud. Then she points toward a collapsed section of wall behind the granary. Nest, she says low and quick. Your stomach answers before your mouth does. You offer her fire in exchange for one. She considers, then nods. Deal. Together you return to your spot. It's not warm, not comfortable, but it's yours. And there's something about cooking next to someone that makes the space feel less empty. She kneels beside you. No words, just rhythm. You clean the rats together. Skin, gut, scrape. It's almost meditative. You no longer flinch at the warmth of organs or the sticky pull of fur. This is just part of the day now, like stretching or breathing. She works faster than you, but not by much. As the fire catches, she tells you a story. Her brother once called pigeons sky rats and made a game of trapping them from rooftops. At first, everyone thought he was insane. Then winter came. By spring, he was a genius. Tastes like regret, she says, grinning. You laugh. Real laughter, not the dry, sarcastic kind. The kind that makes your ribs ache in the best way. Historians still debate whether rat-eating was a solitary act of desperation or something shared an underground form of community dining. Some diaries suggest quiet trades, secret recipes, coded language. You don't need a diary to know what's happening here. It's not just food, it's an alliance. The rats roast slowly. She based one with a bit of grease she saved, maybe from a bird, maybe from a rat before this one. Doesn't matter, the smell is incredible. You both lean in noses, twitching like the very things you're cooking. You're not ashamed. Not anymore. You eat in silence. Bite after bite. You chew slowly, swallowing not just food, but the ache of the week, the hollow of the nights, the fear of forgetting what fullness feels like. It's not a feast, but it is comfort. Afterward, she helps clean the bones. You wrap them in cloth, usable for buttons or tools later. Nothing is wasted. She doesn't say goodbye when she leaves. Just looks at you once, like a note without punctuation. Then she's gone back into the mist. You sit by the fire alone, watching the last of the coals sink into sleep. Your stomach is quiet. Your breath is steady. You run your fingers along the smooth stripped bones and feel a strange sense of order in it all. Not joy, not yet, but balance. And for tonight, that's enough. You're starting to notice patterns. The way your stomach starts to whisper around midday, even when there's no food in sight. The way the fire, if you stoke it just right, keeps burning for an extra hour. The way rats travel in pairs or sometimes threes, boldest just before dusk. And then there's the rhythm of hope. It comes in small, careful beats like the sound of tiny feet in the walls or the pop of fat hitting the pan. Hope doesn't make a grand entrance anymore. It slips in uninvited, sits quietly, and waits for you to notice it. Today you notice it early. The girl with the traps, yes, the same one with the sharp eyes and dirt under her nails waves at you. It's a brief wave, nothing extravagant, but it feels like a holiday. She beckons you over. You walk cautiously, your limbs still stiff from the cold. She has something bundled in cloth. When she opens it, your heart does a somersault. 2 rats, cleanly caught, no damage. Both sizable. One of them even looks plump. You raise an eyebrow. She shrugs, then points toward the granary ruins. New nest, she whispers. They're living under the barley sacks. What's left of them. You nod, impressed and quietly envious. A new nest means more chances, more warmth, more meat, more life. You offer her your fire in exchange for half a catch. She considers it, then nods once. You don't talk much. More words are expensive these days, but there's an understanding. Back at your place, you clean the rats together. It's strange how casual it feels. You talk about nothing in particular. Cloud shapes, how long the snow might last, the way the wind howled like a wolf last night. She tells you a story, says her older brother used to catch pigeons and claim they were sky rats. Everyone thought he was disgusting until they were hungry. Then he was a genius. You both laugh. It's a real laugh too, short but sharp. And it feels like biting into something soft for the first time in weeks. You almost forget you're skinning a rodent while you do it. Historians still argue whether people bonded during famines out of real camaraderie or just mutual need. Some say alliances form purely out of survival instinct. Others insist that shared hardship can forge the most genuine of friendships. You're not sure where you fall in that debate. But right now, you and this girl are peeling fur off rats shoulder to shoulder, and the fire between you feels like something sacred. You roast both slowly. There's enough fat on one to render into the pan, giving you just enough grease to sear the other. The smell is heady, earthy, meaty, real. You both close your eyes and inhale. You divide the meat cleanly. No arguing. No counting ribs or comparing bites. Just half and half. You eat in silence, chewing slowly. The warmth fills your mouth, then your chest, then your limbs. It's not just food, it's medicine. And when you're done, when only bones remain, you both sit back watching the fire shrink into glowing coals. She leans her head against the wall. Weird, isn't it, she says. What that this feels almost normal. You nod. You get it. Because after a while, survival becomes routine. The fear dulls. The shame disappears. You're not thinking about delicacies or banquets anymore. You're thinking about tomorrow's trap, about warmth, about staying alive one small moment at a time. You watch a rat bone crack in the fire. It pops like a tiny spark, then curls into ash. The girl leaves soon after, not with a goodbye, but with a glance that says she'll be back. That's more than enough. You're alone again. You curl under your blanket, still tasting smoke and meat on your tongue. The hunger is quiet now, respectfully so. And your chest feels heavy, but not from despair. Just from the weight of being full. You close your eyes, thinking of all the times you thought you couldn't keep going. And then you think of all the times you did. You think of the trap resetting, of the next rat, of the flicker of heat in a cold room. You think of tomorrow, and for the first time in a long while, you don't dread it. You just wait. You've come to appreciate silence. Not the kind that feels like waiting for something to fall apart, but the kind that arrives after a warm meal when your body is still, and your mind hums like a fire reduced to coals. It's in these quiet hours that you think most clearly. You stare at the bones from last night, light, fragile, almost elegant in their way. Once you might have thrown them out. Now you save them. They make good needles, fish hooks, tiny skewers. You're not wasteful anymore. No one is. Waste is a luxury for the full. It's still dark when you leave your room, a faint haze of frost glimmering in the moonlight. You're heading toward the river. You've heard the rats are bolder down there, fattened on old grain sacks and scraps left by people who fled before the hunger settled in. You tread quietly, not for fear of being heard by people. There aren't many left roaming. No, you walk softly because it makes you feel lighter, like you could disappear if you had to. Down by the riverbank, the world smells damp and sharp. The water's low, a lazy trickle of what used to be a current. You crouch by the edge, scanning the brush, the collapsed bridge, the old crates scattered like forgotten luggage. And then you see them rats. 3 of them weaving through the reeds, noses, twitching tails, trailing behind like lazy commas. They're not scared. Why would they be? You're not a threat unless you have a trap. You lay one out slow and careful. A bit of thread tied to a stick, baited with yesterday's rat fat. It's a delicate thing, barely a trap at all, but you've learned rats are curious, and you've learned patience. You crouch low, barely breathing. Minutes pass, a cloud shifts, letting the moonlight spill down. One rat edges toward the bait, sniffs, hesitates, snap. The trap jerks, the stick flails. You leap forward, swift and certain. Got it. Your hands tremble as you gather it. Not from nerves, but from that jolt of purpose, like you've won something. Like the day just opened its palm and offered you a gift. As you make your way back, cradling your prize, your mind drifts again, this time out to sea. You think about the sailors, the ones trapped on wooden ships for months, sometimes years. The ones who ran out of salted meat, who wept when the last of the hardtack crumbled into wormy dust. They had rats too, plenty. At first they were enemies, then they were survival. Some journals tell of sailors hunting rats between deck planks, boiling them in seawater pretending it was stew. Others roasted them over lantern flames or ate them raw in desperation. Historians still argue whether those stories were exaggerated by land-loving writers eager for drama. But you believe them, because you felt it the moment your stomach overrules your pride. The shift in your thinking from disgust to desire. You remember one tale, a cabin boy on a Spanish galleon who befriended a rat only to kill it on the 8th week at sea. He wept while he ate, not because it was a pet, but because it was the last thing left. Your fire is still smoldering when you return. You rekindle it with dry twigs and blow softly until flame flickers back to life. You clean the rat with practiced ease. The river water was cold, but it makes good rinsing. The knife glides, the skin peels. You're quick now, not careless. Just seasoned. You roast it slowly. The fat sizzles and drips. You rotate the stick. You hum. There's something comforting in repetition. You know how long it takes. You know when the skin blisters just right. You know how to angle it so the meat cooks through, not just outside. You eat half, save half. Always. The first bite tastes familiar, like wood smoke and stubbornness, like another day survived. After you eat, you sit beside the fire, letting it warm your face. The world is quiet. A rat skitters along the far wall. Not tonight, little one. You're safe for now. You lean back against the stone and close your eyes, not to sleep, just to rest. Your body feels heavy but steady. The fire crackles. The hunger is quiet. The night is still. And in that hush, you feel it again, that strange small thing. Not hope, not joy, just balance. Enough to make you smile. The morning is gray again, more ash than light, but you're used to that now. It's become the color of survival. You sit on your heels by the fire pit, turning the leftover rat bones in your fingers. The little rib cage clicks together like a tiny xylophone. You hum something tuneless. You don't even notice you're doing it. You're not in a rush. There's no point. Hunger no longer chases you the way it used to. It follows, yes, but at a polite distance, like a shadow learning manners. You've made peace with it. You've even come to understand its silence. But that doesn't stop your eyes from scanning the floor for movement. Even now, even with a belly that remembers warmth, you can't turn off the reflex. That constant question, what's edible? There's a soft tap near the hearth. Your trap has been nudged. But it's empty. Licked clean. Clever little beast. You smile. It earned it. You reset the snare with the tiniest bit of leftover gristle. It's hardly bait, but rats don't ask for much, and neither do you. As you work, your mind drifts to that age-old question, is this safe? You've asked it before. Every time you take that first bite, every time you hear someone else cough and wonder if their rat was a little too raw, or if it came from the wrong alley. Historians still argue whether rat meat posed a genuine health risk, or whether the dangers were more imagined, tied to fear, not fact. Some accounts speak of disease, parasites, even madness. Others mention that when properly cooked, rat was no worse than rabbit. Maybe even better, at least rats were fresh. You remember the first time someone warned you, you'll die eating that, they said, eyes wide. Then they paused. But you'll die anyway, won't you? That stuck with you. You've learned tricks since then. You boil first, then roast. You avoid the big ones. They're older, tougher, more likely to carry the invisible things. You clean obsessively. You scrape the bones. You toss anything that smells even slightly wrong, and somehow you've made it. You once met someone who salted their rat meat, claimed it kept better. They even rubbed it with ash to preserve it longer, like poor man's jerky. You tried it once. It worked. The texture was terrible, but the smell wasn't awful. You counted that as a win. Another neighbor swore that roasting it whole sealed in the flavor. He also talked to his shoes, so you took that with a pinch of salt if you had any to spare. Still, you listened. You've become good at listening, not just to sounds, but to the silence between them. That pause before a rat takes the bait. That moment between a cough and a confession. That breath someone holds when they're about to say they're starving, but haven't decided if you're safe enough to admit it to yet. You remember once sharing a bit of rat with an old woman in the square. She had no teeth, but she gummed it like a child with candy. Afterwards, she cried, not because she was sad, because she was full. You never saw her again. You think about that sometimes. How easy it is to vanish. No final words, no big scene, just silence. But not you. Not yet. You catch movement from the corner of your eye. You freeze. There beneath the old cabinet, something stirs. Small, dark, fast. You stay still. Wait. Breathe. It emerges slowly. A rat curious. It smells the bait. It wants it, so do you. You watch it sniff the trap, circle it. Smart little thing. You feel admiration and annoyance tangled together like thread, and then snap. The trap shuts. You flinch, then exhale. Caught. You gather it gently as always. You don't rush. You hold it for a second, not in cruelty, but in something like reverence. This is what keeps you here. This little creature, this offering. Back at the fire, you prepare it. Same routine. You hum again. That same little tune with no name. You clean it with care. You know what parts to keep, what parts to leave behind. You roast it evenly. Flip. Baste. Flip again. The smell fills the room. Not bad. Not good. Just real. Like leather and ashes and meat with no past. You eat half. The other half you wrap carefully in cloth. Maybe for later. Maybe for someone else. You don't know yet, but it feels like the right thing to do. You sip a little water, enough to soften your throat, enough to feel human, and then you sit in the quiet. You touch your stomach. It doesn't growl. You close your eyes. And for the first time today, you don't think about what you're missing. You think about what you have, which right now is enough. By now, the hunger feels different. It's not gone, not exactly, but it no longer gnaws at you like an angry animal. It waits, watches, lingers politely in the corners of your thoughts, as if it knows it'll have its turn soon enough. You've made peace with it in the way people make peace with rain or the cold. It's part of the air now, part of you. You wake slowly. Your limbs are stiff but not weak. Your eyes adjust to the pale morning light. The half rat you wrapped the night before is still beside you, tucked safely beneath a cloth. Still good, still waiting. You smile a little. It's strange what counts as comfort these days. You eat sparingly, just a few bites, enough to remind your body it's not forgotten. The rest you return to its place near the fire. Maybe it's the act of saving that soothes you, the belief that you don't have to finish everything, that there will be a later. You spend the day quietly, patching a tear in your cloak, rearranging the stones in your hearth. Little rituals that make the day feel less hollow. You catch yourself thinking, this is sustainable. Then you laugh just once, short and dry. Sustainable. As if this is some sort of plan. As if chewing on rodents is a lifestyle. Still, you're alive. And that's when you start to realize something strange. You're not afraid anymore. Not the same way. The fear used to claw at your throat, used to make you twitch at every creak, every stomach pang. But now you know this dance. You've learned the steps. You've adapted. Historians still debate whether people truly adjusted to starvation or whether they simply broke in quiet ways. Some accounts describe psychological shifts, people laughing too loud, crying for no reason, talking to shadows or forgetting their own names. But others describe a sharpening, a kind of mental clarity that only comes from living minute to minute. You think maybe it's both. You remember when you first started changing, when the smell of rat no longer turned your stomach, when the act of catching one felt less like desperation and more like skill, when you stopped dreaming of roast chicken and started dreaming of full traps. You even caught yourself once correcting someone who was preparing one poorly. Skin it first, you'd muttered. Or the fur sticks. They looked at you like you were mad. You probably were, but you were right. Now you pace your little room like a king in a shrunken palace. You check the floor for signs of guests. You adjust your traps with the care of a clockmaker. You hum that nameless tune again, the one that showed up somewhere between last winter and now. Your world has gotten smaller, simpler. You don't worry about seasons, about calendars, about the passing of time, only the passing of days, the rhythm of hunger and warmth, the soft click of a trap resetting. The moment a rat pauses to sniff something you left behind. You set one of your last scraps as bait. It's barely a mouthful, but you place it gently as if it matters, because it does. And then you sit, not anxiously, not expectantly, just quietly. You think of your old life, whatever that means. A home with wood floors and a bed that didn't fold you like a rag, a table with real plates, a pantry, maybe even a window that shut properly. You can't remember much of it now, just flickers, a sound, a smell, a sensation that something was once easier. And yet somehow this doesn't feel like defeat. You survived the worst days. You've learned to endure the rest. You think about how desperation shapes people. Some become cruel, some become clever. You somehow became calm, a sound. Your ears perk. That shuffle again. Behind the stone pile, you hold still. Your breath slows. There's a flicker of movement, a tail, a whisker, a cautious step. The rat inches forward, sniffing, closer, snap. You exhale, slowly, deliberately, like letting go of something heavy. You approach the trap with steady hands. The rat is still. You whisper the word you always do now, thanks. You don't know if it's for the rat or the world or just something to fill the quiet. You clean it carefully. You don't need to rush. Tonight you'll eat again. Not feast, just enough. And that's all you ever ask for anymore. You light your fire, you roast your meal, and as the smell fills the room, meaty, smoky, familiar, you settle down beside the hearth arms wrapped around your knees. You eat slowly, chew deliberately, taste every bite because there's not enough left in the world to waste. You close your eyes and feel the warmth radiate from your belly outward. Not joy, not satisfaction, just balance, just peace. You dream of plenty, not lavish feasts, not gold plates or chandeliers, but of bread. Warm bread split open in your hands, steam curling upward like a prayer. You dream of butter soft and yellow, of roasted vegetables that don't crunch like twigs, and of meat that comes from something called a shop, not a trap. You dream these things and wake up slowly, the dream still lingering like the scent of something forgotten, but once loved. You stretch in place, joints stiff but not aching. There's a different kind of stillness in your bones now, not weakness, but endurance. The kind that settles in after you've walked a long way barefoot and your feet just accept it. The fire's long out, of course, but that's fine. You'll start it again. You always do. You rise and gather your things, which now includes tools you've made from rat bones, little blades, skewers, and hooks. You're strangely proud of them, not because they're elegant, but because they work. And working with what you have, that's been your greatest skill. Outside, the wind carries a faint scent, something cooking, not rat, something different. You follow it instinctively, your body moving before your mind catches up. You round the corner and find a group huddled near the old forge. Someone has a small pot hanging from an iron hook. You can't see what's inside, but the smell is thick, rich, unfamiliar. You linger nearby, silent. One of the women notices you. She gestures. You hesitate. She gestures again, firmer. So you step closer. They've found something. Not much, but enough for a soup, maybe some wild roots, a scrap of meat, even a few old beans that somehow survived the rats and the mold. It's not a feast, but it smells like one. You sit quietly on the edge of the group and they don't shoo you away. That's rare. You don't ask what's in the pot. They don't offer. That's part of the agreement. When a bowl is passed to you, a cracked, mismatched thing, you hold it like treasure. You sip slowly. It's warm, thick, not bad. You don't even care what it is. For all you know, it's still rat, but it doesn't matter. You're not alone. And that changes something. Historians still argue whether people turn more inward or outward during famines. Some evidence shows hoarding betrayal, a collapse of trust. Other records tell of shared fires, quiet kindness, the rationing of hope. You think both are true, sometimes even on the same day. After the soup, someone sings softly. It's a lullaby, maybe. The kind of song meant for children, though there are none around. Just grown people sitting with empty bowls and full hearts. You close your eyes and let the voice wrap around you like wool. The melody is simple, repetitive. It doesn't want anything from you. It just wants to exist. You feel something in your chest you haven't in a while. Not joy, not relief, connection. You remember the first rat you ever ate in silence? No one around. No one to nod or smile or joke about how it tastes like chicken. Just you alone with your thoughts and a meal that used to squeak. But now this is different. You're still eating what others might call unthinkable, but you're not doing it in the dark anymore. You offer your last bit of roasted tail to the woman beside you. She takes it, doesn't thank you, doesn't need to. It's not about the food, it's about the act. Back at your place, you feel a strange lightness. You didn't eat much, but you feel full in a way your stomach can't explain. You sit by the cold fire. You don't light it right away. You just let yourself be. The room smells faintly of smoke and fur. The floor creaks as the wind slips under the door. Somewhere inside the walls, a rat scurries, but not urgently. You think about how far you've come. You don't flinch when the fire dies. You don't panic when the trap is empty. You don't cry when the bread is gone. You survive. And now sometimes you even share. You wrap yourself in your cloak, still warm from the forge fire, and rest your head against the wall. You can't remember the last time you smiled without food being involved, but you smile now. Because maybe it wasn't the rat that saved you. Maybe it was everything around it. By now you've come to see hunger as a kind of teacher, not a kind one, not patient or gentle, but effective. Hunger doesn't just take from you, it reveals what matters, what lasts, what's real. You think about that as you pick apart your latest catch, a small rat, nothing special. You don't even remember catching it really. You'd set the trap out of habit, and there it was in the morning, curled and still. Almost like it gave itself up. The fire crackles softly. You turn the stick. The meat sizzles. Your eyes follow the smoke as it trails upward and disappears into the rafters. You think about the girl. You haven't seen her in a few days. Maybe she moved on. Maybe she got lucky. Maybe she didn't. You don't ask around. You've learned not to chase ghosts. Still, you catch yourself slicing the rat in two, wrapping half carefully in cloth. Just in case. And then without even meaning to, you laugh. A quiet, strange laugh, the kind that surprises even you. Because here you are laughing over a split rat in a room with no windows, no books, no music, no mattress. Just bones and knife and the kind of clarity that only famine can sharpen. You take a bite, chew, swallow. It tastes like what it always tastes like, ash and effort. But you don't mind. You're used to it now. You've learned to stop looking for flavor and start looking for warmth. Historians still argue whether people in crisis lose their humanity or rediscover it. You think maybe it's neither. Maybe they just shift, reorient, rewrite the rules of what life looks like, what a day feels like, what a meal can be. You think back to your first time, how you hesitated, how your hands shook, how you cried without meaning to. Now your hands are steady, your face is calm. You don't cry anymore. Not because you're numb, but because you've made peace with it, with all of it. You clean your knife, fold the cloth with the spare portion, and place it near the fire to keep warm. You've learned to think ahead, always. Outside, the air carries the bite of coming frost. You step into it, your cloak wrapped tight, your eyes scanning the alleys and roofs like always. And there near the edge of the square, you see something unexpected. A small group, 5, maybe 6 people, talking, huddled around a pile of old crates. One of them has a map or something that looks like one. Another is building a fire. You hear laughter, actual laughter. You stay back half in shadow. You don't move toward them. You just watch. You feel it again, that gentle pulse beneath your ribs. Not hunger, not fear. Something quieter, something like belonging. You'd forgotten what it's like to witness life happening beyond your own fire. You linger until the light starts to fade. Then you turn back steps slower than usual. You think about offering someone half a meal, not because they need it more or because it would make you a better person, just because the weight of carrying it alone is getting heavier than you expected. You light your fire again, roast another rat, and this time you don't eat alone. One of the younger boys from the square passes by your doorway. He's thin eyes, hollow but alert. You don't say anything, just hold out a scrap. He stops, looks, hesitates, then takes it. He nods. Not thanks, just a nod. You nod back. It's not much, but in this world, gestures like that are currency. You go back to your fire, the rest of the rats still warm in your hands. You chew, swallow, and close your eyes for a moment. You feel something shift. Not outside, inside. This isn't just survival anymore. It's something slower, something steadier, a quiet choosing, day after day. You finish your meal, wipe your hands, breathe. Tomorrow will come, hunger will follow, but so will fire. And maybe someone to share it with. Tonight the fire burns slower. You watch it from your place on the floor, eyes half closed, the flickering light painting your face in soft orange and quiet gold. The rat bones crackle gently in the coals. Tiny fireworks announcing the end of another long day. You're not in a rush to sleep. There's no urgency anymore, not like before. Hunger isn't a knife at your throat now. It's more like a tired dog curled up at your feet, breathing slow, waiting for tomorrow. You stretch out your legs and sigh through your nose. Not because you're sad, just because your chest feels full in a way food can't explain. The room is still, quiet. You can hear the faint whistle of wind outside slipping through the seams in the wall. A piece of cloth rustles as it sways gently above the hearth. And underneath it all, faint constant, you hear rats in the rafters. Your old rivals, your companions, your livelihood. You smile. You think about how many days you've survived, how many rats you've cleaned and roasted, how many bones you've stripped and tucked away like tiny trophies. You think about the silence you've grown to love, the way it gives your thoughts room to breathe. You think about how your body has changed, not thinner necessarily, though it is, but quieter, sharper, more efficient. Like the fire, like the traps, like everything else now. You think of the girl, the boy, the woman who shared soup without speaking, the people you've seen and not seen, those who passed like shadows and those who stayed long enough to matter. You think about the old you, the one who would have screamed at the idea of this life, and the you now who would only raise an eyebrow, maybe shrug. Historians still argue whether survival strips people of identity or gives it new shape, whether hardship refines you or hollows you out. You don't have the answer. Maybe both are true. But you know this, there is dignity in not giving up. Even when the meals are small, the world is cold, and the rats are smarter than you'd like. You know that surviving isn't just about filling your belly. It's about the choice to keep going, to keep lighting the fire, to keep setting the trap, to keep carving out little pieces of comfort where none were promised. And tonight you've done all of that. You lean back against the wall and pull your cloak tighter. You let your eyes close the fire now, just a red glow on your lids. You're not afraid of the dark. You've made peace with it. You're not waiting for rescue. You've rescued yourself. You're not praying for feasts. You're thankful for enough. And that in the end is what carries you. Not luck, not miracle. Just the quiet rhythm of living, even when it's hard. You feel sleep pulling at you soft as wool. The fire hums, the world exhales, and so do you. And now as the night settles deeper and the last warmth of the fire breathes out into the room, you let yourself drift. Your body, once stiff and cold, is finally soft, finally still. You feel your muscles ease your shoulders, lower the corners of your mouth, no longer clenched from waiting. The fire crackles a little quieter now, and so do your thoughts. You imagine the world beyond the cold stone walls. A world where food is easy, where rats are just shadows and stories, where survival doesn't require silence and smoke and second guesses. But you don't need that world tonight. Tonight, this tiny one is enough. The warmth on your skin, the soft ache in your belly that says you ate today. The floor beneath you, unkind but familiar. The sound of the wind curling outside like a lullaby with no words. You're here, and you made it. Let that be enough for now. There is nothing to do, nowhere to go, no traps to set, no fire to feed. The hunger is sleeping, so are the rats. And soon, so will you. So breathe a little deeper. Let your fingers relax. Let your eyes close gently. The world will wait. And you've earned your rest. Sweet dreams.